All right. Hey guys, it has been almost 2 years since I've last been on this channel. So thank you for sticking with me if you've been a longtime subscriber. I wanted to give some context on where I've been before I get into the video about my first paid illustration project. So at the time I started my YouTube, I was working freelance, actively trying to make an illustration portfolio, also making YouTube videos about those portfolio pieces I was making, and quickly became way too much. And on top of that, I had some issues in my personal life that were causing some severe anxiety, and I decided to go to therapy. And if anyone's ever gone to therapy, you might know that once you start looking under the rug, things can kind of blow up as you realize how bad things are, and you need to take a break. So that is what I did. Everything's fine. I graduated therapy, so that's awesome. And then since then, I've just been enjoying life. One thing I learned from therapy is that I use work to keep so busy that I don't face my issues. And YouTube had definitely become an outlet for that. So since then, I've gone to Colorado, Japan, I got engaged. I've also been crafting a lot. So I've been doing a lot of air dry clay sculpting. I just bought a wood carving set. I started traditional painting again. It's not good. Photography. And then if you didn't know, I have a horse, so I spend a lot of time at the barn. So the thing that motivated me to come back to YouTube was actually a comment from someone just saying, hey, I randomly thought of your channel. How are you doing? Are we going to get any more videos? And something simple like that is just super sweet and means a lot that you guys think about me. So here I am. And something I've been struggling with is that a lot of my videos are based on illustrations, obviously, but at a certain point, it kind of gets repetitive for me to show something I drew and then explain how I did that. Whereas if I made my channel about anything, it would be a little bit easier to come out with videos more frequently. I feel like right now I have to wait for something to happen in my illustration journey to share it with you all and have a valuable video. So that's something I'm kind of thinking through, but today, I hope this video is helpful for you. So to give you some context on the project, I was contacted by an old coworker that I had not talked to in over 4 years. We keep in touch over social media as far as just interacting with each other's posts, but yeah, I had no idea she wants to be a writer. She contacted me with a full 90-page manuscript, or maybe it was longer, for a middle grade children's novel, mystery, thriller, rebel, main character, super fun. So after we discussed budget, timeline, her general vision, I said yes, and we were able to get started. So just to, oh, hello, Luna. Yeah, so I feel like most projects are going to land in this Venn diagram of how fun is it, how much is it going to pay, and how much time/flexibility are you going to have to get it done. And I feel like you usually have to pick two unless you're like at the top of your game. So not to say that I was underpaid for this, it is definitely the most I've ever been paid to draw, and it was super awesome. However, I think when you're starting out, it's just good to keep that in mind, like what's most important to you and what do you want to fill up your work schedule with. And how should you prioritize projects. She gave me over 6 months to finish this. It did not take that long because I was so excited to work on it. But another great thing about this project is that because I was kind of in a creative rut from taking a break, having a story gives you a framework to work within, and it's a lot easier, at least for me, to start being creative when I have parameters. So as far as the deliverables for this project, it was 4 illustrations, and they weren't necessarily supposed to be literal images from the book. It was supposed to be more of a promotional teaser for agents and publishers when she would submit the manuscript. So I decided to do 1 color full spread, 1 black and white spread, and 2 small spots that were also black and white because middle grade books are typically all black and white except for the cover. Once we did that, I came up with a list of ideas for each illustration. I read the entire book. It was very entertaining. And then from there, Kira chose what she wanted, and yeah, I started sketching. So first we're going to start off with the chapter headers, specifically the candelabra. Essentially, a summary plot of the book is that the main character, Nora, has to transfer schools to this boarding school, and I think it's for troubled children. But anyway, she was causing problems by being a rebel, and now she's at this school. Her initial perception of the school is that it's bad and people are mean and it's scary. And on her first night, she wakes up in the middle of the night, comes out of her dorm, and realizes she is in a dream/nightmare kind of world. And from there, she makes friends and realizes that other kids are struggling with this as well, and they band together and face the major conflict in the book, and she grows from that journey. This candelabra is from her first night when she leaves the dorm and realizes things are not right. And I think it was pretty broad as far as the description for the candelabra, so I kind of just did what I wanted to do, and I didn't have any edits on this illustration, so that's great. In general, I just wanted an ornate object. So my process for all of these illustrations is to start with a loose sketch and then gradually make it cleaner and cleaner until I can switch to painting with the Max Pack Gouache Retro brush. That is my favorite brush. And then I will go over the final painting with the Peppermint brush in Procreate. And I'm going to be repeating that for pretty much all of the drawings, so I'm not going to keep calling that out. But yeah, that's typically my process. And then Kira requested that some of these be put on backgrounds with transparency, so that she could use it like a icon on her website for her portfolio. So that's why I went back and added a gray circle around it, and for that I used an acrylic brush. So the next chapter header I did was a inkwell, and I really like the idea of kind of like a hidden ink in there, because originally she described it as kind of like a rock or a stone, which wouldn't make sense if the inkwell was just out because it's glass and has ridges or whatever in a lid. So this is kind of like a hidden catch situation with a hinge inkwell. The perspective was kind of tricky because I didn't want it to look too realistic and be playful. But yeah, I did kind of have to go back and forth on the perspective to make it read as a round sphere. I think I like the candelabra more than the inkwell, but the inkwell was just a very unique idea and very important to the story should this book series continue, because I got behind the scenes information from Kira. So I initially gave a list of different ideas for each deliverable, and Kira picked from that list. So for the color spread, we decided to do Nora arriving to the school, which happens in the first few pages of the book. I wanted it to be a Victorian mansion that was kind of decrepit, and as far as the characters, originally I had a taxi driver walking her in the illustration, and that's because that's what was written. But Kira and I decided, since this isn't necessarily supposed to be literal from the book, we took him out because he's not a main character. Although I'm giving myself props for getting a masculine character in a piece of my art, because I find it really hard to draw men. And as far as edits, Kira really just wanted to edit some of the colors, and then Nora's hair, I drew it a little bit too clean and she wanted it more wild and curly. And overall, this was definitely the most difficult image because I get kind of intimidated by environments and making them interesting. I really like all of the details that came together on the house, but as far as deciding what was going on in the background, I kind of was at a loss, like what can I add to it that doesn't make it look like a happy place? As far as Headmistress Meadowsweet's pose, I looked at Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, because she's not supposed to be a witch, but she is supposed to be looking nefarious. She actually ends up not being bad or evil or anything, so her design had to work both ways. I like how this turned out. I think it's a good portfolio piece. I think it piques interest when you look at it, like what's going on, because Nora looks pissed. And there's a weird shadow at the top, and this generally doesn't look like a place that you want to go. And then finally, my favorite piece of the project. Okay, so for the last black and white spread, originally we were planning to do a illustration of all of the main characters gathered up towards the end of the book, and I was trying to display what their personalities are through their facial expressions and body language. And I really actually like this illustration because it was really difficult, but I like where the sketch ended up. However, after I sent it to Kira, she said it wasn't really working for her because the point of the illustrations is to be more of a teaser rather than literal illustrations from passages in the book. So we decided to switch the last illustration to focus on the Night King, which is the villain of the book. And she wanted this image to be as ominous and spoopy as possible, but still keep it appropriate for middle schoolers. She really liked how the house illustration was creating intrigue about the setting, and she wanted this illustration to create intrigue about what the problem or conflict of the book was, which totally makes sense. And she said that this one could be a more symbolic illustration, so she sent some inspo images from Over the Garden Wall, which I have not watched all of it. I will eventually because I know I'll like it, but anyway, I don't know what the bad guy is called. So anyway, she sent those images, so I went and started brainstorming on what the Night King should look like, because he had a lot of different descriptions throughout the book, because he kind of shifts as Nora's perception shifts in the book. I went through a lot of different silhouettes because for the most part he's a silhouette in the book. And like I said, this is for middle schoolers. So originally I think I was going a little bit too goofy, but the descriptions of him kind of varied in the book. Like at one point it said that his arms are dragging on the ground and he kind of looks like a troll. And then at other points it's more like he's a shadowy cloud. Kira initially pushed me away from him being clothed. I had a favorite design where you could see a cloak and his crown and stuff, and he looked a little bit more, I don't want to say handsome, but appealing and more human. And originally she shied away from that, but after I sent her a few more sketches, we both agreed to go more back towards that, which I was happy about. So because this illustration was supposed to focus on a problem, I wanted to simplify it down to literally just Nora and the Night King. Because of that, I wanted it to be more abstract and artistic, and that's why I went for more flowing, painterly stuff going on, and everything draws your eye to the Night King's face, and then I feel like that leads you down to Nora. So I did choose to use a charcoal brush on this illustration, which is different from the rest because he's kind of described as being made out of static noise at some points, and to kind of enhance that wispy feel, I felt like it worked even though it was technically breaking consistency with the rest of the images, just because it kind of demonstrates that he's from a different world than Nora. I sometimes struggle to draw characters / women in different ways. So I think I captured like her innocence and age, and I really like how her hair turned out as far as the highlights. In general, I think her expression comes through because that's something I've gotten feedback on from people just generally reviewing my portfolio that I've paid them to look at it, is that there's not enough expression variation in my characters. So this one was kind of hard because she's supposed to be scared, but she's not terrified, but she is kind of brave. So it's like finding that medium. So I did that through her facial expression as well as the body language. I think originally I also had her feet pointed inwards, and that looked a little bit too cowardly. This last drawing is my favorite because it's illustrative, narrative, and artistic, so it just has all the things. As far as what's going on with this project, Kira is submitting it to publishers and agents, and she'll let me know if anything comes of it. I did find out this week that she was shortlisted for an award for it. I'm not sure what the award is, but that's super exciting. And yeah, I'm just super honored that she thought of me and that it all worked out. This was super fun to work on, and it was great to add to my portfolio and get paid to do it. I feel like that's everything valuable I have to say. If you want to stay updated on what I'm up to, you can go to my Instagram, which changed from SavvyLazo_illustration to SavvyLazo_art. And that's just because, like I said, I've been doing a lot of crafting, and the organizational part of my brain was getting annoyed by putting little sculptures of animals under illustration. So anyway, that's where you can keep up with me. Let me know what you'd like to see next. I can't promise I'll come out with it anytime soon, but hopefully. And I hope this was helpful for all of you guys. I'll talk to you at some point. Okay, bye.